Navigating Neva, and I'm your host, Neva Nicole, joined with my co-host, Wes King.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here.
Today, we're thrilled to have a special guest who's dedicated nearly 3 decades of dedicated 3 decades to the world in aquatics, Venetia Belk.
Hi, I am really, really excited to be here. This is kind of really exciting. It's like I'm diving into a new thing. So this is kind of cool, you know? I'm super excited. I can start by telling you a little bit about myself. Um, I started in aquatics at 15. I was on swim team. And the reason that I became a lifeguard was because my swim coach said that we had to become lifeguards in order to stay on swim team.
Smart.
Nice.
Tricky, but smart.
Very,
Yeah.
very tricky,
Yeah.
very, very tricky. And as swim team expenses were getting a little bit more expensive and we were really kind of in an inner city rural area, she wanted us to have the means to be able to kind of support that journey that we were on in swim team so our parents did not have to. So it was really smart on her part. But yeah, I started there with the city of Cleveland. And after starting there, I dove right into teaching swim lessons shortly after that. We had huge, ginormous classes back then. It wasn't like there wasn't all these ratios and all these things. I feel like I learned a lot on the fly. Just because I really didn't have formal training at that time at how to teach the lesson. It was more so you're good with kids, so you're going to teach lessons.
hmm
And I kind of just grew from there. And as I grew in swim team, my instruction with swim lessons got better. They kind of went hand in hand for me. The better swimmer I became, the better swim instructor I became. And after a while, I kind of went to flight attending for a little bit, but I was still coaching on the side, like going back and forth. It was almost like I was like a I don't know, a lifeguard of the sky in a sense.
I love it.
The literally the flight attendant school and lifeguarding are kind of like very, very similar. You're just watching people in a different way, I would say.
Sure.
But on the weekends when I was down, I was still coaching, still teaching lessons, subbing, all that stuff. And then I found out I was pregnant with my son and I decided to dive fully back in full time to aquatics. And that was um not really a hard decision because aquatics was always home for me. So it didn't feel like it was like a bad thing or a bad choice or a bad decision. It was just like, I don't want to be flying around
Yeah. Yeah.
while
Sure.
I have a
Yeah.
kid. And I kept getting offered these positions. And it was like, you know what? Why not just take one? So I decided to go to Lifetime Fitness in Beechwood, Ohio.
Oh, been there?
I was there for a little while. That's when I decided to dive even deeper and get my LGI and start getting higher instructional licenses. LGI, WSI, just loading it up there. I think I even have a U swim license, something like that. There was something called U swim
Yes, there was.
at Lifestyle Fitness in Beechwood. So we had to
Yeah.
get swim certified. It was really weird though, the way that the classes and the course classes were labeled. They
Yeah.
were labeled like college classes, like it was like Wave 101 and
All
then
the lifetimes.
2.
I was there back in the day. I remember that in the corporate. Yeah, keep going. Yep, yep.
So, I mean, I liked how the parents understood what level it was. I don't think a lot of the instructors understood what level they were supposed to be teaching.
All
I feel
fair.
like there was a lot of gaps in there. So, um, and then from there, I was called on the phone and offered a position at the YMCA of Greater Cleveland. So then I became the aquatic coordinator there. Shortly after becoming the aquatic coordinator there, the YMCA had some tragedies at um, one of the YMCA's within the organization, and it was a pretty big tragedy. I mean, one of the children there during summer camp actually lost their life, and it really changed the way that they decided to run aquatics. They wanted to up their level of safety. So they brought in like insurance companies and
Hmm.
lots of things. And the insurance companies came in and evaluated everybody's pool individually.
Yep.
Um, when my pool was evaluated, I was already doing in services. I was already doing trainings with my staff because it was something that I always felt was necessary. I did get a
Hmm.
lot of pushback when I started it because it was a pool on the budget and it was going to cost um, a little bit more money. I say a little bit, but
The tale is old as time. All
yes.
the audience here is going, I can relate. I can relate.
Uh-huh.
So
All of us, yeah.
Yeah.
What
so it
pool
was gonna
isn't on a budget?
I
Yeah.
mean, it costs a little bit more money, but at the same time, when I came into that new facility, I didn't know another way to get the
Hmm.
guards to where I felt comfortable leaving the pool to them. So,
Sure.
and that's a huge stepping stone. And even though it was a small 4-lane pool, it still was an inner city pool. We still had a lot of kids. We still had a lot of summer camps, aftercare, all kinds of things, and all of those things use the pool. So
Hmm.
I did start in-service training. I did start CPR drops, and stuff like that. So if you couldn't make it to in-service training, well, then we still had a CPR drop, which would just mean the dummies next to the chair. You don't know when it's coming. You got to pop off the
Yep.
chair and CPR, and activate your emergency action plan properly and do all those skills and stuff. And
Good for you.
I mean, as I did that, the insurance company came in and they decided to change my role. I still got to keep my pool, but I was bumped up to Association Director of Safety and Compliance for
Yes.
all of the branches.
Well done.
Um, I did it for the first 2 years without any extra pay.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Hugs.
um, because I really wanted to make a change. I really
Yep.
wanted to make a difference. And I didn't want to see any more children in that position. And I really wanted to make a change and make a change for the better. There are a lot of things. I mean, I know I saw the struggle of a lot of aquatic directors. Everybody knows the
Hmm.
struggle of being an aquatic director, of juggling family, juggling time, juggling trying to keep the pool open. A lot of pools were open so many hours that they were hard. It was hard for an aquatic director to manage.
Hmm.
I do think it was very smart on their part to put in somebody that could speak for them. It wasn't just the aquatic director. So when there was board meetings about the budget or anything like that, I would step in and I would say, "Hey,
Yeah.
look, well, this is the reality of the situation. You have these classes that are busting at the seams. You have all these things going on. You're going to have to spend more money on your aquatic budget in order to keep the pool safe,
Hmm.
and really just break it down in layman's terms for
Right.
people that who aren't, they're not normally in aquatics and they just don't understand why one person can't watch hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I
You're a
don't know.
translator. You're a bridge and a translator. Yeah.
Um, After a while of being there, we had a lot of great things happen. I started an auditing team that went out and audited all the facilities, all the pools, and that was really fun. Um, I did find a lot of mistakes, a lot of things. There were some guards that walked off and were like, this isn't for me, because I would
Hmm.
actually have a person go in, I'd have extra staff on the deck, and this did cost a lot of money, but it changed the guards.
A lot is relative. Sorry to cut you off, but a lot is relative. Keep going. Right.
A
Has
lot is
yeah.
relative, but I
Yeah.
mean, because
Right.
I had
Right.
to have an extra LGI with me. I had to have
Hmm.
somebody who was, pretending to be in distress. We had to post signage within the facility saying that we were conducting live audits. But it really turned the staff around into, um, it turned them into like almost like super guards, like, I mean, the
Yeah.
ones that stayed, they were awesome and they were ready to see if they could score. I actually created a scoring system. So one pool would be like West Park would be like, oh, I'm gonna beat Lakewood next time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And they had that healthy camaraderie between the two, between different facilities and things. And before summer, we would do a huge in-service training between all the facilities. They would all meet up. And it was just a lot of fun. It changed the culture. We did have some guards though that did walk off and were like, this isn't for me. I can't do this. You know what I mean? And I would rather them find out then than when a child really needed assistance or when
Hmm.
somebody really needed help, you know?
That's how you
Um,
change the culture.
so
Yeah,
um
that's
after that,
fantastic.
after a while, I did burn out there. There was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. I had over 250 staff, um, lots of facilities and lots of training. And when I had my second son and he was diagnosed with autism, I knew that I couldn't continue that journey in the facet that I was doing it. And it was time for me to step away. But I felt like it was a good time for me to step away as well. Just because the staff had gotten so good at what they were doing. We had turned a lot of those lifeguards that had that passion into LGIs. So they were
Mhm.
able to like carry that torch in a sense, you know? So I felt comfortable with stepping away and then going, I went to the city of um, Shaker Heights, and that was fun. It was almost like a water park. The pool
Awesome.
there was like a water park, but I still had multiple facilities. It was definitely a lot of fun. I learned a lot more about helping guards get to the next level in a place where you have like a multi-guard rotation, you know, where there's like,
Advancement.
yeah, because there I think we had like I want to say 13 chairs. So it was a lot different than coming from a YMCA where most of the pools only had maybe two, maybe three chairs tops. And
Sure.
then going into a situation where there was like 13 chairs and a diving well and then all these water slides and all these things. Um, that was a lot of fun. After a while of being there, um, I was offered another position. I always get these weird phone calls and they're like, "Hey, have you ever thought about coming here?" And I'm like, "I guess maybe, you know."
That's a
So
compliment.
the fun part about that transition was I was actually able to help them pick the next aquatic director before I left.
Nice.
So I
Very
was,
rare.
That
yes,
is very
and
rare.
I got the lifeguards to buy in by them also having a say in who the next aquatic director was.
Oh.
So the lifeguards actually got to interview the aquatic directors that were coming in. Um,
Wow.
and that was a really great experience because when I came into Shaker, the lady that was running the pool there before just kind of left, and none of the kids knew why. They were very upset. They were very hurt. They were very, just broken by that. Like, why did she just leave us?
Now that is
Um,
not rare in the aquatics community. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's not. I mean, you find your aquatic director, you kind of find it's another one of those very, very sensitive relationships, aquatic director to lifeguard, aquatic coordinator to lifeguard. It's a very sensitive, it's a mentorship in a sense. You're kind of mentoring this person. It's their first job ever into coming into the actual workforce. And it can be scary for them, but you're trying to comfort them. You're trying to teach them how to be a good employee at the same time without pulling your own hair out.
Absolutely.
So, so fast forward now, after getting offered to come to a interview at the Racket Club, I went, and I was like, well, the pool's kind of small. This is gonna be easy.
Ha! They tricked you.
Final last words,
Yeah.
But I thought, I'm like, well, this shouldn't be too hard. There's not that many members. It's gonna be pretty easy. So I decided to dive into the next. I had never worked at a country club like
Mm,
that before, so that was different. And I
yes.
was excited for it. Um, all the members were super awesome. I mean, it's so different than working at a city municipality,
Hmm.
as opposed on, so much different. So I am happy that I did make that change. And just a lot more, I would say a lot more freedom um to navigate um with
Chat.
my swim lessons and how I like to teach them. As opposed on being stuck to just using just Red Cross and nothing else. Um, so I mean, all of those things have been really, really great here. So yeah.
That's awesome. That was fantastic. Thank you for all that background and information. And you're an aquatics person when you hit double digit aquatic puns in your bio, right? From dive to Anyway, so I was listening to that, but also well played in those puns. But that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nicole, let's start off with some. Dive a little deeper with another pun. What do you think,
With
Nicole?
another, well, I was gonna go for our questions, our warm-up questions, which that was a great intro, but
Yeah.
I I don't know if our listeners are gonna have one or the other, so I'm gonna pose both questions, and maybe Wes has an opinion, or you can just answer what you feel led to. So the question
Okay.
is, what first drew you to aquatics? But after listening to your intro, I mean, you said swim team did, so swim team is how you got here. But I mean, my
Yes.
question would be, what? Not everybody goes to swim team. So was that like a family sport? Was that friends were like, what made you go to swim team to start?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I always loved the water. I always have been a water baby
Drawn to
from
it.
the start. Even though, funny fact, I never actually had a formal swim lesson. I
There we
went straight to
go.
swim team.
Yeah. And
Interesting.
Um,
not a lot of people come out of swim team and choose to manage. In fact, some of the greatest swimmers are not the greatest instructors,
Very
and
true.
some of the worst swimmers are great instructors. So to expand on that, if because I think this is really valuable. One, the perception of, oh, you're just a swimmer or you're just a manager, but how did you bridge that gap? How did you get yourself to see yourself as a leader and manager, but also the world, the executive directors, the managers, and say, oh, well, you're just a swimmer or you're just a swim team coach. Because I think a lot of people in this industry have that hurdle of, can you lead a department or can you
yeah,
just lead a practice? Tell
Right.
us
yeah.
about that if you wouldn't mind.
So, for swim team, even though I never really had a formal swim lesson, my swim coach was very, very awesome, with me and helping me and kind of guiding me and giving me little toolkits and little things to use. And I wasn't ever afraid to ask for help. I
Love it.
always asked for help. Some of the girls on my team, were amazing swimmers, and I was not afraid to ask for help or if they could stay after with me. I mean, one of the biggest things I wanted to master was butterfly, and it took me a while to master it throughout my high school career. And before I knew it, I was in the 200 IM. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And I was able to accomplish that, but the way that I did it was just by simply asking questions. I mean, I probably drank more water in the pool when I started than anybody else. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I wasn't afraid of it, and I was never afraid of the hard work that came with it. Um, at the
And I,
time, I did spend a lot of time in the gym, and when I went into management, I really wanted to make sure that I was breaking steps down so the guards could follow it. But I realized
Mhm.
that there was a huge gap with the executive directors
There we
and
go.
aquatic staff. And
Hmm.
I had to do that same thing that I did before and breaking it down into small little pieces so
Yep.
that they could actually understand um, what was going on in aquatics. And if I could tie it to cost, it would always help me. Uh,
Yes. Yes. Ding, ding,
it would
ding.
always help me a little bit more if I could tie it to cost. Like they would be like, oh, well, it costs so much more to put this extra lifeguard on. Oh, well, if
Mhm.
we, you know what I mean? If we don't have this
Bingo.
lifeguard and we have to close the pool from this time to this time, well, that's going to affect membership. How much is that
Oh,
cost? How much is
I
that
want
going to cost us?
I want to drive to Ohio and give you a big. I teach classes on this subject, and I'm a horrible person for cutting you off. But I'll say this just so everybody hears it: is you recognized that there is a gap. You
Yes.
then very specifically understood how to bridge that gap, and it wasn't storming in the boss's office and saying, "Give me a
No,
raise." It
no.
wasn't, "Look, I have to have a new AED." Right? It was systematically breaking down. This is a piece of information. This is a piece of information. And then the boss can start to absorb it no matter what level of seniority that boss is or their understanding of quality. Oh, this is financial. This is
Yeah.
safety. This is good. And
Yes.
so again, I apologize for kind of, derailing your response, but also I think it's so important that the audience hears that you can achieve this. You
You
just
can't.
have to, right? Sorry, go ahead,
You
please.
just
Yes, yes.
the best thing is to not go in so passionate. I think
Thank
sometimes
you.
in aquatics we're very passionate, and because we're so passionate and we're so sometimes you feel outraged because you feel
Yes.
like you don't want to protect my kids. You know,
Hmm.
this is about protecting my kids, the
Or
kids
my
that come
pool
to my
deck,
pool,
or my
or
locker
my
room,
pool
or
deck.
my
These are
yes,
my,
yes.
in my eyes, all the kids that come to my pool are my babies.
You,
All of them
yep,
are mine. So,
yep.
so it is an awkward place to be in. And it's like when you're going into those meetings and you're like, what do you mean you don't want to pay for my kids?
Right. And like my kids and the executive director, I have a minivan with two kids. You have 200 kids? How'd you pull that off? Where the executive director sees expense line, they see
Yeah.
risk, they see reward, they see timelines. And I think another line item you hit really importantly is leave the passion at the door.
Hmm.
Yes.
When you have your
You,
khakis on and your
yes.
polo on and your dress on and the passion, because the other side of that desk has not lived your life. The
No,
other side of the desk did not get their hair wet in the freezing cold. They
no,
didn't do all the things you did. And so
no,
they can't relate to the passion. So
no.
to your point, give them something they can relate to. And they can relate to dollars. They can relate to
Hmm.
customer service. Anyway, I think you'd
Yeah.
leave that just for a minute and then pick it right back up when you leave the office.
And sometimes it helps to, you know, bounce ideas off someone else
Mhm.
before you
Yeah.
even get to that meeting.
Great suggestion.
Write
Yeah.
it all down. And I always say I try to tackle three things. I'm not going to come at you with, there might be 10 things that really
Yes.
need assistance.
Yes.
There probably are 20 things that need assistance, but I'm going to systematically break it down and go three things this time and
Hmm.
gauge how they react off of those three things. And
Yep.
if it's okay, I might add in one more, but if it's not so good,
Uh,
I might
yeah.
save to the next three, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
for another conversation.
I've given my boss a dartboard, and there's been five things on the dartboard. I won all of them, and they all cost the same amount. And I said, throw one and hit it. Whatever you hit, it's all $250. I don't care which one. He's like, which one do you need? I don't care. Just throw one. And the boss is like, doesn't matter to me. But there was no passion involved. There was quick and easy, and I could walk out to the whole team and go, hey, we got something we needed. Right.
Yes,
And the next time there's only four things on the list. So to your point is no, have a plan, right? Well,
yes,
I have a good question coming up, but I think another takeaway for the audience is when you walk in that office or the office comes to you, what's your plan? Is it
yes,
three things? Is it dollars? Is it
yes,
time? And I think you're really smart to say, there is a lot more, boss. There's more coming, but thank you for the three things. I appreciate
yes,
that we got this done. And you move, and the boss is going to hear that over and over. Yeah.
yes.
Um, to that point, knowing that you've had such a multifaceted career in aquatics, is there a role or that's been most rewarding for you, or an accomplishment that's been most rewarding for you? And if so, what is it and why?
I love teaching swim lessons. I would say teaching is one of the most rewarding roles ever. I know one time not a few years ago, so many years ago. Oh my God, I can't even remember how many years ago. And I think I was at the Y, but I could have been at a different pool. But I had a young girl, her mom came running up to me. They had been on vacation and her mom came running up to me and gave me a hug. And I was like, I don't know why this lady's hugging me, but she's giving me this like big hug and she's like, you saved my daughter's life. And I said, I don't know how I say. I've jumped in the pool, I've made a couple saves here and there. So glad she's okay. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
This had not happened at the pool. They were actually on vacation. They're actually on a boat. And and I always tell kids like you need to be wearing a life jacket. We do the whole like, life
Hmm.
jacket on the boat, wear it, don't just pack it, wear your jacket, the whole thing, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, she did not have it on. She did not have it on and she fell off the boat and she was able to swim back to the boat. And I
Taught her to
think she,
swim.
yes,
Yes.
yes, I think she had to
Yeah.
be 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. And the mom was just like so ecstatic, you know what I'm saying? That, that I had helped her learn to swim because this child had a huge fear of the water. She was very fearful.
Sure.
And, it took some time. It took a lot of time, a lot of love, a lot of, caring and things like that. And a lot of games,
Yeah.
purposeful play. But
Yeah.
we learn a lot. Children learn a lot through purposeful play. So
You mentioned, so my wife has a full-time swim lesson business as well. And from her nonverbal students high-fiving her to us getting the most random vacation photos and videos of people on beaches It's like, why are we getting a picture of a 9-year-old and a bee? Oh, this is Sammy, and she did this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I was like, we don't go on these. Send us on the vacations. But so I
Right?
love that. Also, what I love is that your ability to get the family involved while they
Yeah,
weren't wearing a life jacket, and we understand that. The recognition of the phrase, the mom knowing it. It's not
yes.
just you teaching the child, it's the whole family. And so that's going to be my next question. And then we'll go back over to Nicole is with all your experience of teaching and your passion of teaching and your ability to provide a curriculum, what in your mind sets an instructor apart from being they're good, they can teach a lesson. So this person is really exceptional and they really are bringing it to the next level. Is it curriculum? Is it thought? What have you seen and how have you seen instructors progress to I can do level two and I can get them to bubbles too. I've really brought a student a bond to the next level of teaching.
I really think it has to do with them being comfortable and confident, the instructor being comfortable and confident, but also helping the student be comfortable and confident.
I
Um,
love that.
once they're both like in their own little zone,
Hmm.
giving small little critiques. I like to give small little critiques to my instructors and things like that. Not in front of the parent. I never do it in
Hmm.
front of the parent. That is one of the biggest takeaways from all of it. I normally just
Hmm.
back with my clipboard. Nobody really
Yeah.
knows what's going on, you know what I mean, kind of thing.
I've
Some
had
parents are
crosswords on
super,
my clipboard before. So I've had
yeah,
crosswords on my clipboard just to mess with the staff. Sorry, keep going.
yeah. So just so that the parent, some parents are smart, they figured it out after, a few sessions of coming to lessons.
Some.
But majority do not know that I am critiquing, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? The rest of the lessons, I'm critiquing not just, that they're following the lesson plans, but also that they know the child's name,
Yes.
that they, know what the child likes. I always do at least a few 2 to 3 minutes, with each child that I teach. Um, on what they did how was your day, like what's going on today, what did you do today that was so exciting,
Yeah.
like I just got out of the water teaching a little bit ago before I hopped on here with you guys, and one of the kids, she was excited because she played Candyland with her class, so she was excited that today was a fun day and she got to play Candyland with her class. So
That's awesome.
just getting to know your students, I think, is super important, and they'll trust you more to try new things if they know that you care.
Absolutely. A trick that I stole from another leader was, what don't you like? So when I teach class, I don't like ketchup. And so I'll ask the student the next day, hey, did anybody put ketchup on your sandwich today? Wes, you know I don't like ketchup. You're right. I remember. And so it always brings that up. And second to Candyland, my daughter's on the spectrum and she learned how to cheat in Candyland because
Oh,
she can see the color reflection of the cards when they're upside down. And the candy cards are pink colored and the other cards have a different backing. So she'll look up and
I
she'll
love
pick
that.
which, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry for the Candyland heist, but now you know how to
No,
cheat at Candyland.
you know what? I'll be looking.
Yeah, fair. But I love that comfortable and that calm and comfort, and the fact that you relate it both to the student and to the instructor in a symbiotic relationship. That if you're a great instructor, you can be as great as you want. But if that student doesn't feel good, or if that student is a super good swimmer, that doesn't mean you can hold your coffee cup and walk around the pool deck.
Yes.
So I think you've established a really clear path there. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
So my next question for you is, what's something about working in aquatics that people might not realize, especially since you've had such a long career in it?
They might not realize how much work actually goes into opening for the outdoor season.
Ding, ding, ding.
I don't think people realize.
You should
I
say
don't
that
think they
again
realize.
louder. We should print that on shirts,
Anyway,
bumper stickers.
yeah,
Yes.
can you trademark that? You don't
Yeah.
Yes.
realize.
I mean, I don't think they realize that, and I don't think they
If you only
realize how
knew.
much aquatic directors actually do. We have to be not only, I would say good swimmers, really good swimmers, but we also have to be decent accountants. We also have to be, I like, I would say
Therapists?
therapists. Yes,
Oh,
that was what
Yeah.
I
sure.
was searching for.
Yeah.
Therapists for our lifeguards and other staff in the building sometimes, but
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, recently, I've been starting to, incorporate how I can expand, and I'm saying our swim team. So at a country club, our swim team is a little bit different. We have to
Hmm.
have a buffet after every swim meet.
Yeah. Can only
So,
imagine that year-end party. I have a few country clubs in my belt. What that
so,
year-end party looks like.
I mean, but this is after every swim meet, like just a regular meet. It's just a regular meet. So you have to get orders and how many people are eating and those type of things. And I have to get that to the chef for the other country club or get it to
The
the chef for my
chef.
club. And like,
Do you hear that, Nicole? The chef.
I hear it. I hear it.
Sorry.
so it's different. There's
It
so
is.
many roles. I mean, one minute, I mean, the amount of meetings I've attended in my swimsuit, maybe
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean,
Yes.
like, wow, everybody in here is,
They
actually
got
wearing real clothes.
they got time to prepare. They're in
Yeah,
shoes.
and to
They
be
put
dry.
socks on. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have
Yeah.
my like zip up in my Crocs, you know what I mean, and a cup of coffee, and here we go. We're in the meeting.
Yeah. The either and to you, I mean, it's a great. We're laughing about it because we've all had our brow beaten over and over, and kicked around with it. But we know that the pool is a centerpiece of a property if done right.
Yes, it is.
And I think people realize that when they look at the shining star of it, but they don't realize how many rays of light have to be shined into it, from the mechanical to the customer service. And I think you bring
I,
up another great point: is what type of property is your pool? And if you're a country club, well, you better think a little differently than if you're not, and if you're public, and if you're et cetera, and have a different expectation, maybe. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yes. No.
fantastic.
I mean, you can go from pump room to pool, from pool to boardroom. I mean, it's wild.
Right. All in the same chlorine drip, all with the same collared
Yeah.
shirt that has chlorine stains on it.
Yes,
Um,
I always say as the chlorine burns.
right. I used to have a joke that I should just invest in Kohl's stock because I bought so many polos from Kohl's that I should just invest in their stock. Um,
True.
but to that point, and kind of bring it all kind of wrapped up a little bit here, we've been doing this a long time. I started in '95. You've been around for quite a while. What in your mind has changed or made the biggest adjustment in facility management or aquatic management? Maybe an adjustment you've made or that you've seen the industry make?
I do think recently the Red Cross has made a big change in their curriculum for lifeguarding. And I do think a lot of the changes that they did at first, I was like, oh my God, why did they add so many pages to this? But
They
Yeah,
and
did.
930.
yeah, I know. I'm like, wow. Um, However, I do think they added a lot to the curriculum in regards to how to pick your next job. There's a lot of
I like
pieces,
that
little
note.
tidbits in there, and how important in-service training is, because there's still a lot of facilities that don't do it. Um, Insurance companies are starting to get a little bit more involved. I would like to say, with certain facilities. It just depends on where you're at and like what facility
Sure.
you're at. But I do see those things changing. When I started, I mean, I never, I
Ha!
never, we didn't have in services. We called it training and we were just playing in the pool as lifeguards,
Mm-hmm.
like jumping around and,
Chicken wing
oh,
fights and
yeah,
racing
like having
grocery.
great
Yeah, yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh no.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I do
Different.
think that's changed, which
Yeah.
is,
I think you're spot on with those points of recognition. And also, like you said, not that we didn't take it seriously before, but there's real accountability in the organizations now.
yeah,
And people like yourself who've instilled accountability now have some support where maybe in the past you maybe didn't, when you say, look, I've got
yes.
insurance backing me, I've got the city backing me, I've
Yeah.
got blah, blah, blah. And maybe it makes conversations easier, maybe, to
Yes.
get some financial backing or to get, management backing.
I mean, a lot of times, pools, I hate to say it like this, sometimes they like to use tragedy as their teacher. You know what I mean?
Truth.
And um, I do think with Instagram, Facebook, and all these other entities out there, it's putting some of the tragedies more to the forefront so that it's not such a crazy conversation to have
Right.
Hmm.
anymore. Um, And if you're an aquatic director or a lifeguard struggling, trying to figure out like how to have that conversation, I would say just have it, you know what I mean? But don't be over passionate about it. Like I said,
Yeah.
calmly have the conversation, because I always say to lifeguards, if you go into a pool, if I've trained you and you go into a pool and you're sitting in the lifeguard chair and you know there's a corner of the pool from that chair that you cannot see, if you can't see it, you can't save it. And there may be
Great,
an aquatic director there that maybe is new, maybe they've never sat in that chair. I don't know. But if you can't see it, you can't save it,
great tag.
say something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Take up, as my mother used to say, take up the gauntlet.
I
Say
love it.
something.
Yeah. Uh, I love it. If you can't see, you can't save it. I think also I think the way that aquatics or the world can be seen through the social media eyes can be seen as negative, right?
Yeah.
But I love what you said is that if your boss and your organization is hearing about drowning prevention and water safety, and they're not hearing it from you jumping up and down and waving your cheerleading and your pom poms, that's a good thing
Yes.
because then they can relate to it, right? The best one of the things I tell my clients and people I work with is if your boss is coming to you first, you own that.
Yes.
If you got to knock down their door, it's a harder hill to climb. And I think what I like hearing you say is that you've found ways and you've seen people be successful at using what is out there publicly now, what is being used socially to your advantage to
Yeah.
say, it's not my story. This happened 4 miles down the road, or this
Yes.
happened, just read the article. And they, oh, okay, I can deal with this now. I can absorb it a little easier. So I love the way you're approaching that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, and this might be, you've come from so many different outlets, you might be able to answer this different, but I'm kind of looking at, from your perspective, over time, have you seen a change or a shift in management? Like, has management evolved, or is it really just per facility cut? Like, what would you say?
I would say management has the last few facilities that I've worked at, management has evolved. Um, they have evolved. Some of them have gone backwards.
Fair. Fair.
Regression, like
Yeah.
swim
There are
lessons. You're
some,
like, well, we
yeah,
went
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
yeah. I have seen regression at one particular facility, but for the most part, most of the facilities have evolved and moved forward. Um, and most of the ones that have evolved and moved forward actually had executive staff come down to the in-services, come down to those in-service
Mhm.
trainings, see what exactly is going on at those trainings. If
Yeah,
you can get if you can get, an executive director to put on a swimsuit,
Mhm.
get
Mhm.
in with the lifeguards and see what it is they're doing. They may not be able to do all the skills. Don't put them in the deep end if they can't swim. Let them
Yep.
stay.
Yep.
But you can still get a huge feel, for what it's like to even pull the backboard out. You know what I mean? Run with the
Yes.
crash bag. You know what I mean? Um,
Slip on the deck. Sorry, slip on the deck with your shiny
yeah,
brass shoes.
I mean, know what the emergency action plan is and why you have to have so many staff in order to implement it. It's not, it seems so simple to understand the action plan. Um, but it's not so simple until you see it in action. And when you're going into these meetings and they're saying, oh, we need to cut one staff or this or that, you know what I mean? Well, now my action plan doesn't work. Now my emergency
Hmm.
action plan doesn't work because I don't have the amount of staff that I need to implement that plan. So,
My legally documented, written, approved action plan. Sorry to cut you off. That's an important note for everybody, right? Because if you
yeah,
don't have it legally written and approved, then I can't stand on it. Sorry to cut you off,
yeah,
but now you can throw it back in their face and say, "Hey, remember that thing we all signed off, and the fire department signed off with the 4 staff? Oh, it
yes,
does have to have 4 staff, not three. Anyway, but keep going because I know you have it. Yeah, yeah,
yes. So all of those things, you know what I'm saying? Like, those help, and it really
hmm
helps come out and actually see the action plan in action as opposed
yeah,
on not seeing it. It just gives you a
hmm
little bit more to stand on. But I,
yeah,
I do think I do think that management that actually takes that next step and comes down to the pool deck, majority of them do evolve. Now the ones that stay behind the desk and never come down, a lot of them just don't evolve.
yeah. That's a great statement for life, but also specific to our pool is does the C suite, if you will, the corporate suite, do they really understand the consequences of their decisions? Right?
Yes.
Do they understand what that check writing means or not writing?
Yeah.
So that kind of leads me up to my last question is knowing that you've been through it, you've had your highs and your lows, and I've heard a lot of mentoring, right? Mama taught me if you hear something twice, pay attention. I've heard you mention quite a bit about your passion for seeing that the individual go in the tears, TIER, tears of growth,
Yes.
not tears of sadness.
Yes.
To that point, what advice or what piece of advice would you give somebody who is listening to this or wants their staff to listen to this and say, hey, here's how you can grow in this industry. Here's something I've learned. What advice would you give somebody that wants to make a career out of this?
I would say ask questions. I would say ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, ask questions. Number two, um, don't be afraid to make mistakes because
Check.
you learn when you make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make a mistake when you're doing in-service training. Don't be afraid to go first. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and and help other staff. Once you learn it, once you know it, you know what I mean? Reach back and help others. You can only grow more
Yeah.
reaching back and helping others
I love
to
that.
grow. So
Anybody that says they haven't flooded a pump room just hasn't been doing this long enough, right? To that
that's
point,
true.
we've
We
all
flood the
flooded a pump
lobby
room.
sometimes on accident. Forget
Right.
the pump room, but like
We've
all
all
the way in.
when it's on the sidewalk. We've
Right.
all put the headrest on in the wrong spot. We've all had the kids slip off the bench. Again, not that these are all tragedies, but to your point is reminding people that we've all been at the beginning and it's okay to make a mistake. I love that reinforcement. And once you've learned it, don't be shy about teaching it to somebody else. I think those are awesome takeaways.
Yeah.
Nicole, where do we go from here?
Well, before my last question, I skipped over one, and I'm really interested to hear your answer to this, and I think our community listening wants to hear it too. So the question I didn't ask that I'm going back to is how can instructors and families work together to prioritize safety without instilling fear in a new swimmer?
I would like to say a lot of times I've heard this all the time when I'm sitting in the lifeguard chair and they want to give the child a choice on whether or not to wear a life jacket or whether to wear it or or not. And it's like, well, when you get in your car, don't you have safety rules when you get in the vehicle? And it's just a non-negotiable. Certain things when it comes to safety are non-negotiables.
It's a great
And this should
answer.
be one of those things that is a non-negotiable. Another thing is I've never seen a child just sit on the edge of a pool. Um, they're
Where's Miss
going,
Dana? Yeah.
I
they're
know that's
going
what I
in.
just thought of. I was like, oh my gosh, she said it. Go
Yeah. Keep
continue.
going.
We're sorry we cut you off. That's
No,
a
no,
whole
no.
Okay,
I'm
good.
like, no,
But you're
I'm
right. On their
laughing
own,
because
they're not
like
going to do it. Yeah.
they're not going to do it. They're never going to do it. They're never going to sit on the wall. They're going in. They've been in the pool all day, and now you want them to sit on the edge of the pool and take a break. Who says who? Like, why? I mean, if I were a child, I'd be like, I'm going back in. As soon as she
Right.
turns
I've been
the head on,
swimming for
get
six
back in.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
I'm
come
not
on,
tired.
lady.
I'm not hungry. I'm not cold. I'm getting back
Oh,
in.
yeah.
Right.
And that's what's happening. They are going to go back in. So, make wise choices, I would say. I mean, I would say make wise choices as a parent. You are the parent. So if there's non-negotiables, then there's
Yes.
non-negotiables.
I love that.
And until now and then, you know what I'm saying? So when and then, I don't know how that one lady put it, but when you can do this, then we can do that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when you can pass the deep end test, then we can do that. But until we pass the deep end test, until we're an independent swimmer, we cannot do this, you know?
That
Um,
dialogue. Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
being afraid to have that dialogue, you know what I mean? Just really,
Mhm.
immersing your child. I mean, there's so many different books and things like that that you can read with your child about water safety and things like that. Like take the time, and not just when the summer comes, do it all year
Mm-hmm.
round. It's an all year round thing, and don't just wait to the summer to go to the pool, you know, go
Yeah.
to the pool frequently so that your child knows what the rules are and they know what's expected of them and they know how to behave.
If I was good with graphic design behind Venetia, I would have all of our books and materials plugging and flashing
Plop,
behind you.
plop, plop,
We
plop,
get this
plop,
one, and
plop, plop.
you don't know. You're saying, and don't forget to buy this and buy that, and this
You're
is
re-
free.
you're
Because you're
repeating
right.
everything.
It is all there. It's a matter, I think, like you said, of getting the parent to understand that just because the pool gate opened doesn't mean you're off duty. And
Yes.
second is when we are live in our lessons, is having that dialogue and discussion about what's off the table. Deep ends off the table.
Yeah.
Life jackets, wearing them is not all you have to. And I think you're very smart to say this is just non-negotiable. How do we improve the relationship? We establish what's appropriate now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, for me, it's a non-negotiable. I mean, when you
That's a
can
great,
swim, when you can make it, when you can swim all the way across and back, you know what I mean? And you're
right.
treading water and you're independent, we don't have to worry about that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But right now, this is a non-negotiable. So until we can do this, we can't do this.
Wishy-washy is for wheels on the bus, not for water
Yes.
safety.
That's
No.
a good one.
You you can quote that. Oh, sorry, Nicole. I know you had one more
Well,
to
I do
kind of.
have one more
Yeah.
question, but I
Yeah.
want to piggyback off two things she
Oh,
said
yeah.
for our audience. One, it's been a long time since I was in high school, but when I was in high school, the kids would come and they would swim for 2 hours, and I really don't see that anymore any
Truth.
ever. But because we swam for 2 hours, we would do a safety break, and people never understood why we did this, and it was the oddest thing. Like the kids would stay in the pool the whole time, and when we made them sit on the side, we didn't take a break then. I think the counselors like did a head count. I don't know what happened, but I can tell you from the tall tower that I was in, when we did the safety break, all of a sudden everybody had to go to the bathroom. And then I remembered that they were thirsty, and I was like, "So what if you were just never going to go potty? Like you were just going to keep
Right.
swimming?"
So the next
But
6 hours.
but for safety, I mean, we made them sit on the side. Obviously, we're checking to see that there was nobody in the pool, but they just needed a breather because I mean, we didn't have bird bath pools back then. So you were just for us, for the guards, it was a mental you were
Hmm.
so overwhelmed,
Yeah.
even though we did our rotations and we did 20-minute rotations because we did 5 different stations, but camp came and the pool was packed for two
Yeah.
hours of nonstop swimming. And you said another thing I was going to mention that I forgot. Oh, I wanted to talk about the sitting. Parents don't tell the kids to sit, but swim instructors do. And I don't like to reinvent the wheel if it's already there. And I'm not going to talk about a guest we're going to have later, but there is a guest that we haven't had or she hasn't said she'll be a guest. She makes the kids sit, but I make the kids sit. I think that's a swim instructor thing. Like lifeguards and swim instructors will
Right.
and do make kids sit, and
Yeah.
parents just don't think of that.
It
But
might be the
we
first
do.
time that child's ever been put in timeout their entire life,
Right.
as
Yeah,
opposed
I
to our
mean,
generation where that child came into the pool on timeout and left on timeout, where
yes.
it's just a different. I mean, I have two kids, one special need on the spectrum, and the other one is like a living saint, and so they're both, different scales, and so you have to, as a parent, though, to your point, you are not off the clock just because you're laying on the cot. Like, anyway,
Yes.
yeah,
That's another good
Yes.
one. Well, our
I'm on fire.
last question for you for tonight is what's next? Do you have any exciting projects or goals on the horizon? What do you got going on?
So I am starting some pop-up safety, they're kind of like pop-up little safety, water safety things with kids and for families and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So and really working on opening my own swim school and kind of diving into that a little bit more just because I'm really passionate about it and
Yeah.
it's something I've always wanted to do. And I dabbled with it a little bit, but never really dove really into it. And I feel like I'm pretty much ready for it. So I'm definitely ready to expand my wings
That's
or my
awesome.
fins, expand my fins.
There
Yes,
you go.
yes, yes.
Spread your fins and
Yeah,
swim.
Yeah.
yes. That is so
Very
great.
good.
Well, I really thank you for coming on our show
Yes.
tonight, and I appreciate all your time. I think all your insights and your expertise was something that I don't know, everybody listening, I don't know if they would have guessed if they had a bingo card. I think you brought a lot of insightful things and inspiring moments that they probably didn't know were coming. So I thank you for that and sharing all of your words with us. So
Absolutely. I love the way you tie everything together and have phrasing and terminology and communication skills that bring everything to the level for every instructor that in every program you have. It's been awesome. So thank you
Yeah,
very much.
yes.
no
Yeah.
problem.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If this is your first time, we hope that you come back. You can join or subscribe and follow us on YouTube. All of these are videos as well as audio if you guys are listening on Apple or Spotify. And share this with your friends. And of course, we're still open for taking guests and we have suggestions if you want to drop them. So we're bringing the community together, those that are passionate
And
about aquatics and safety.
absolutely. And some upcoming news. So stay tuned. We'll be announcing a few upcoming exciting things that we've got upcoming exciting
In the month.
things.
Within the month,
Yeah.
make those announcements.
Very soon, exciting
Yeah.
upcoming things. Yes.
Yeah.
Did I say that enough? Okay, got it. Okay, cool.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Very
Well,
good.
enjoy your week. We want you guys to have a safe summer, have
Yes.
safe surroundings, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.